Can you create this realistic 7U can mockup in Photoshop? Let's design it step by step. Hey creators, welcome to Swastik Creations Lab Tarot. Today we're making a hyper-realistic 7U can mockup in Photoshop.
To create a vibrant background, I chose a radial gradient, dark red, for the 7-up vibe. Place this radial gradient in the center of your project canvas, just like this. Then, reduce its size a little something like this. Then I created a new layer and used the ellipse selection tool to make an elliptical selection, like this. First, I change the foreground color to light gray. Then I switch it to the background and press Ctrl plus backspace to fill the selected area with gray. Next, I go to the filter menu, blur, Gaussian blur, and increase the blur value like this, then hit OK. After that, I transform this shape and choose warp. Here, I reduce the size from the right side, then adjust the left side to match something like this. Now, I change the blending mode to soft light. Then I duplicate this layer using Ctrl plus J. Next, I create a new layer and select a hard round brush. I reduce the size and slightly adjust its shape to an ellipse. Then, using the eyedropper tool, I pick a dark red color from the background. I paint like this to create a subtle floor effect for the background. Then, I go again to filter blur, Gaussian blur, adjust the value, and hit OK. After that, I add a layer mask. Switching to a soft round brush, I reduce the brush size and gently erase parts of the effect to blend it naturally. Finally, I select all the layers, group them together, and rename the group as BG for background. Now, let's bring in the can image. First, I unlock the layer, then go to the Select menu and choose Subject. After a few seconds, Photoshop selects the can automatically. You'll notice some areas aren't perfectly selected, so I switch to the Quick Selection tool and manually fix those parts. To add to the selection, I hold the Shift key, and to subtract, I hold the Alt key. Just follow this process carefully to get a clean cutout of the can. Once the selection looks good, I press Ctrl plus J to create a duplicate layer. Then I transform and adjust its size. Next, I go to the Adjustment Layer option and add a solid color background. I choose a dark color so I can clearly see any unwanted edges around the can. As you can see, there's a white unwanted area on the top of the can. To fix this, I select the pen tool and carefully create a path around that area. Then I press Ctrl plus Shift plus Enter to convert the path into a selection and hit Ctrl plus X to remove it. Clean and precise. I repeat the same process for the bottom part of the can, just follow along carefully. Now I drag and drop the cleaned can into our main project file. I resize it and place it perfectly in the center of the background. Next, I duplicate the can layer and hide one copy for backup. Then, I select the rectangle tool and draw a shape over the upper part of the can. I change its fill color to light gray. After that, I transform the shape and use warp to match it perfectly with the curvature of the can's top. Adjust it carefully until it aligns naturally like this. Finally, I create a clipping mask so the shape fits perfectly onto the can surface. Now, I repeat the same process for the lower part of the can. Using the rectangle tool, I draw a shape here and fill it with a light gray color. Then I place this layer above the can layer and reduce its opacity so I can clearly see how it aligns. This makes it easier to transform the shape and match the edges perfectly. Using Warp Transform, I adjust it carefully to fit the curvature of the can. Once it looks right, I restore the opacity back to normal and create a clipping mask. Nice and clean. Next, I create another rectangle for the middle part of the can. I follow the same process. But this time I choose a dark black color. Again, I reduce the opacity and transform it from both sides. Then I go to Warp Custom Cylindrical. Adjust the points from the top and bottom to match the can's shape. After that, I reset the opacity, convert this layer into a smart object, and create a clipping mask. Then I place this layer above the can. Now it's time to add the 7UP design. I open the design file, place it inside this rectangle layer, and adjust its size using transform. Then I go to File, Save. As soon as I save, you can see the design automatically applied onto the can. But we're not done yet, now we'll add realism. I duplicate the original can layer and place it on top. Then create a clipping mask. I change its blending mode to multiply and reduce the fill to 40%. Then I duplicate it again, clip it, change the blending mode to lighten, and reduce the fill to 11%. Again, I duplicate the layer, clip it, set the blending mode to color burn, and increase the fill to 35%. One more duplicate, clip it, set the blending mode to normal, keep fill at 100%, then press Ctrl+L and adjust the levels like this. After that, change the blending mode to overlay. Now you can see the lighting and shadows coming to life, making the can look much more realistic. I fine-tune the levels again to enhance highlights and dark areas. This really boosts the depth. Next, I select all these layers, group them, and rename it as Mockup. For the rectangle layer, I rename it Place Your Design Here, so you can easily replace it later. Now I add a brightness, contrast adjustment layer, and clip it to the can. I slightly increase brightness and contrast to enhance the overall look. To make the edges pop, I change the blending mode of the top edge to color burn. You can see how it becomes brighter and more defined. I apply the same effect to the bottom edge. Now let's enhance the background glow. I create a new layer, set the foreground color to white, and use a soft round brush to click once behind the can. Then I change the blending mode to linear dodge, add, and scale it up. I create another layer, choose a light red color, and repeat the same process to add a subtle colored glow. Just follow along for a balanced look. Next, I create a shadow below the can. I add a new layer above the background group, set the color to black, and apply a soft brush stroke. Then I transform it by compressing it vertically and place it under the can. To add more depth, I create another layer and use a dark red color for a side shadow. I adjust the brush into an elliptical shape. Paint it softly and reduce the opacity. This adds a realistic environment feel. Now, I group both shadow layers and rename them shadows. Next, I hide all layers except the can, then press Ctrl plus Shift plus Alt plus E to merge a visible copy. A new merged layer appears on top. Now I create the reflection. I transform this merged layer vertically and place it below the can. Then I add a mask and use a black to white gradient. I switch the gradient to linear and apply it like this to create a smooth reflection fade. Adjust the gradient points carefully until it looks natural, and there you go, a realistic reflection effect. Now, let's enhance the glow effect. I select the glow layer and set its blending mode to color dodge. Then, I create a new layer above it. I reset the brush to its default shape and choose a bright red color for the glow behind the can. With a soft round brush, I apply it gently, like this looks great. Now, I change its blending mode to lighten for a smoother effect. Next, I go back to the 7UP label design file and press Ctrl plus L to open levels. I adjust the values like this to boost brightness and highlights. Then I save the file. As soon as I do that, you can see the changes applied to the can, making it more vibrant and realistic. Now, I organize the layers. I select the reflection layer, group it, and rename it Reflection. Then I go to the background and adjust the radial gradient slightly to improve the lighting focus. After that, I select all the glow layers, scale them up using Transform, group them together, and rename the group Glow. I reduce the fill slightly to keep the effect balanced. You can now see the before and after the 7UP mockup is almost ready. But let's take it one step further. To add more realism, I bring in a water droplets texture. I drag and drop it into the main file, resize it, and place it over the can. Then I increase its size slightly change the blending mode to hard light. After that, I create a clipping mask so it fits perfectly on the can. Now I press Ctrl plus L again. Adjust the levels like this. And hit OK. To enhance it further, I add a brightness, contrast adjustment layer, clip it to the droplets layer, and increase the values slightly. This makes the droplets pop and look more realistic. Next, I go to the mockup group and add a mask to the 7UP label design layer. Using a hard round brush with black color, I carefully remove unwanted areas from the top edge of the can. I repeat the same process for the bottom edge to clean it up. And just like that, our 7UP can mock-up is complete. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. See you in the next creative video.